Dena Thompson wasn't the kind of woman you forgot easily. She was charming, intelligent, magnetic in a way that made people lean in when she spoke. But behind that smile was calculation, a slow, quiet danger disguised as love. She didn't need a weapon to kill. She used something stronger: trust. Born in 1960 in Hendon, North London, Dena's early life didn't hint at the darkness that would follow. She wasn't violent. She wasn't loud. She was observant, the kind who watched before she moved. By the time she reached her 20s, Dena had learned something powerful. If you could make someone fall in love with you, you could make them do anything. And for Dena, love wasn't a feeling. It was a weapon. She began placing Lonely Hearts ads in newspapers, a common way to meet people before the internet. Her words were simple but effective: attractive, caring woman looking for companionship and stability. She wasn't looking for love, she was looking for opportunity. That's how she met her first husband, Lee Wyatt, a kind man, naive, the kind of person who saw only the best in others. They married in 1984, fast, romantic, whirlwind, and within months, Dena began draining his accounts. She spun stories, fake investments, business ideas, sob stories that never happened. By the time Lee realized, she'd taken everything, £23,000, and his trust. But even then, Dena wasn't finished. She simply moved on to her next target. In 1991, she married again. Her name hadn't changed, but her game had evolved. His name was Julian Webb. He was 31, intelligent, soft-spoken, with a stable job and a quiet nature. To him, Dena was the perfect woman, loving, attentive, always smiling. They shared dinners, laughs, and plans for a future. But what Julian didn't know was that Dena was already married, still legally tied to Wyatt, a bigamist. And that wasn't the only secret she was keeping, because Dena had begun planning something that would make even seasoned detectives shiver. June 1994. It was an ordinary night. Takeaway curry, laughter, a glass of wine. Julian told her he felt tired halfway through the meal. She told him to rest. Minutes later, he collapsed. Paramedics couldn't save him. The autopsy found high levels of antidepressants and aspirin, a fatal mix. But the death was ruled natural causes. Dena cried, played the grieving widow, and walked away with his insurance payout. Behind closed doors, she smiled. For years, Dena vanished into quiet comfort. New relationships, new names, new schemes. To neighbors, she was polite, normal, even kind. No one suspected that the woman next door was a killer who'd buried her crime beneath charm. But Dena had a weakness. She couldn't stop manipulating, and every lie she told brought her closer to being caught. By the late 90s, she had married again. Richard Thompson, her third husband. This time, she met her match. Richard was skeptical, guarded, and eventually suspicious. He noticed things: money missing, strange phone calls, a fake pregnancy test Dena used to keep him close. Their relationship turned toxic. Fights, accusations, fear. One night things exploded. She attacked him, claimed he'd abused her. Police arrived at chaos, but detectives noticed something odd. Every time Dena told her story, details changed. And in her home, investigators found documents, insurance forms, fake identities, evidence of financial fraud. Then came the name Julian Webb. The officers digging into Dena's past discovered she had been married before, twice. Both men had been financially exploited, one of them dead under suspicious circumstances. Detective Chief Inspector Martin Underhill later said, "She was every man's nightmare. She destroyed lives for fun." The investigation reopened Julian Webb's case 7 years after his death. His body was exhumed, and forensic scientists, using new toxicology technology, confirmed what the original autopsy missed. Julian had been poisoned. The traces of antidepressants were consistent with deliberate administration, not an accident. That discovery changed everything. Detectives began reconstructing Dena's pattern, her financial scams, false identities, and how she'd moved between victims. They uncovered bigamy, fraud, forgery, and deception, stretching back more than a decade. To the press, she became the Black Widow, Every headline painted her as the woman who loved, lied, and killed. During questioning, Dena stayed calm. She didn't break down. She didn't cry. She played the same role she'd always played, the misunderstood victim. When detectives confronted her with the exhumation results, she didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head slightly and said, "That's ridiculous. I loved him." It was chilling, not because of the denial, but because of how believable she sounded. In 2003, Dena Thompson stood trial for the murder of Julian Webb. The courtroom was packed. Prosecutors described her as a calculating woman who used love as a weapon. Her defense insisted there was no proof she administered the drugs. But the jury didn't see a grieving widow. They saw a pattern and a predator. Evidence of her past marriages, fraud, and manipulation destroyed her credibility. Even her third husband, Richard, testified, describing how she'd faked a pregnancy to keep control. After deliberation, the verdict was clear: guilty, life imprisonment. As the judge read the sentence, Dena stared straight ahead, expressionless, not a tear, not a word, just that faint, cold smirk she was known for. Behind bars, Dena became a legend of sorts. Prison staff said she remained polite, even helpful, but manipulative underneath. She spent years studying psychology and criminology, calling herself a student of human behavior. To some, that was irony. To others, a warning. Even in prison, Dena found ways to control those around her. Letters to strangers, false confessions to gain attention, always keeping power where she could. In 2022, after nearly 2 decades, she was quietly released on parole. The decision sparked outrage across Britain. Her surviving victims, and the families of those she destroyed, were furious. Detectives who'd worked the case described her release as a dangerous mistake, but legally she had served the minimum term, and once again, she walked free. To this day, Dena Thompson remains one of the most manipulative offenders in British criminal history. Not because of brutality, but because of subtlety. She didn't need to shout, threaten, or fight. She just needed to smile and be believed. Her crimes remind us that evil doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it wears perfume. Sometimes it says, "I love you," and means, "I own you." When Julian Webb's body was found to contain poison, it wasn't just a case solved. It was a revelation of years of deceit. She had turned relationships into experiments, love into leverage, people into pawns. And the most haunting part, she did it without remorse. Psychologists later described her as a classic manipulative narcissist, charming, intelligent, with no capacity for empathy. She could mimic emotion perfectly, but never feel it. Her victims weren't random. She chose men she could dominate, emotionally generous, financially stable, and eager to please. Every act of affection was strategic. Every kiss was an investment. Every "I love you" was a lie with intent. For Dena Thompson, the game was never about money alone. It was about control, watching someone unravel under her influence. That was her real reward. When police searched her home, they found journals, notes on people, finances, and manipulation tactics. She'd written, "People give you what you want if you give them what they need." A philosophy of deception, a glimpse into how she saw the world, not as people, but as opportunities. The DCI who led her arrest once said, "She didn't kill out of rage or desperation. She killed because she could." And maybe that's what makes her story so terrifying. The absence of chaos, the calm calculation behind every move. Dena Thompson didn't just commit murder. She studied it, and for years no one noticed. As for her victims, men who wanted love and found a predator, their names rarely make headlines anymore, but their stories linger, because each one reminds us of how easily manipulation hides behind affection. And even now, decades later, Dena Thompson's shadow lingers over the term Black Widow, a reminder that not all killers use weapons. Some just use words. This is Mason Mysteries, and this is another mystery that should have never happened, because sometimes the most dangerous kind of killer is the one who never raises her voice.